Back to Stars movie recaps, everyone. Voyagers, a 2020 adventure, sci-fi, and thriller movie, is what I'll be showing you today. Beware of spoilers. Take care and be cautious. Earth is deteriorating. In the year 2063, researchers search for a new planet that can support human life and discover it. A woman describes the planet as one that humans can colonize while it is displayed on the screen. She goes on to say that the planet needs to have a scouting mission sent there. Since it will take 86 years to travel there, the mission's crew will procreate on the ship, resulting in the third generation on board being the first to arrive on the planet. The genes of top scientists are combined to create the crew through genetic engineering on Earth. A man is heard discussing the rationale for this strategy, explaining why the crew, which will be made up of kids raised and trained specifically for the mission, will be specially designed to carry out the mission. Determining when they will be ready to leave is the next step. The crew can preserve resources for a longer period of time the younger they are. Richard, however, is concerned that they might not be completely prepared to handle the complexity of space travel on their own. Later, Richard can be seen entering a location where the crew's young members are being raised and donning full protective gear. They all erupt in joy as soon as he walks into the rooms where they reside. Christopher, Scylla, and Zach are put to bed after Richard checks on their academic progress. Richard reassures Zach that he is safe when he hears him say that he is afraid. Richard is speaking with the mission's manager the following day. He advises her to accompany the kids so he can raise and look out for them. Richard's inclusion in the mission would also enable it to launch in 4 years rather than 7. Richard takes over the controls as the mission then begins. The mission ship, Humanitas, and the shuttle dock. They all enter and head to their rooms. Richard gives Earth one last glance. The children are seen waking up and getting ready to begin their days on the ship 10 years later, indicating that they are already adults. The first lesson discusses second-generation fertilization, which will start in the 24th year of their lives. The crew functions like machines throughout the day. They can be seen consuming a blue fluid. Classical music is being listened to by Christopher and Zach. Scylla strolls through the ship as she scans the surroundings. She tells Richard later that the crew's lives are unimportant in their conversation. He tries to console her by showing her pictures of his grandparents and telling her how crucial it is to plan for the future. Christopher struggles to fall asleep that night. He pays attention to the ship's sounds. Richard and Christopher are examining the condition of the plants the following day in the hydroponics bay when a warning about water toxicity flashes on Christopher's screen. He questions Richard about it because he thinks it might be a chemical that their urine isn't properly processing, but Richard dismisses his worries. He has doubts about it. So later, he questions Zach about the T56-day ingredient. They question why the data isn't available. The two of them return later that evening to try to determine what it is. By passing the firewall, Christopher is able to access the data. The blue liquid they drink contains the chemical ingredient. Zach believes it to be a digestive aid, but they discover it has other psychological effects. Their desires and pleasure-seeking tendencies are diminished, and they become docile and dull. They are being tranquilized and drugged in order to prevent them from procreating naturally and overcrowding the ship. They both give up on the blue liquid. They later inform Julie and Kai of the information. Along with the knowledge of a ship's secret compartment later, Richard and Christopher are meeting. He admits that he has been lying to them, but only brings up Pod 23, an unmarked compartment. Richard explains to him that there must be a reason why the mission lied to them, and that the pod might be for the third generation. Following the session, Richard sends a message to Earth requesting permission to be completely open and truthful with the crew, so they won't lose trust in him. There will be a delay in the message's delivery. The following day, as they wait in line together, Christopher has a fantasy about Scylla. He keeps staring at her as they eat lunch. but Zach walks up to her and tells her that she has changed. Richard enters and instructs him not to grab her in violation of the rules. Zach and Christopher can be seen fighting and acting out in the gym. The others are unaware of what is taking place. The effects of not taking the drug start to affect the two of them. They enter an observation room after hearing the ship's noises and find one of their fellow crew members there. He informs them that he believes it might be an alien life form after the three of them discuss what it could be. Richard shows Scylla dried plants from Earth while they are in his office. When Zach and Christopher overhear them speaking, they enter the room. When Zach notices Richard stroking Scylla's shoulder, he becomes envious. Richard tells them that they need to fix their transmitter after they lose contact with Earth. While the others continue in their roles, Zach will follow him. Zach notices Scylla and approaches her once more as the preparations are in motion. He begins touching her inappropriately after she mentions the suit he'll be wearing. When Richard enters, he lifts him off of her. He asks Zach what's going on, but the latter flees. Richard searches for him and spots Phoebe walking toward him. She informs him that he stopped taking the blue. He then encounters Christopher and learns that he has also stopped using the drug. They argue, but Richard explains that the drug was put in place to stop just the kind of behavior that was seen in Zach. He asks Christopher to assist him in repairing the transmitter so that once it is operational, he will support him when he raises his concerns with mission control. While getting ready for the spacewalk, all of the other crew members are seated in their places inside the ship. Zach walks into the computer room. Christopher and Richard leave the ship. Richard monitors Christopher because he is sensing things he has never felt before. Richard fixes the first transmitter component before going over the second. The crew is growing restless as the ship's noises can be heard inside once more. When Richard and Christopher are checking to see if anyone else is outside, something unexpectedly appears on the screen next to them. Richard is hurt and is thrown away from the ship. The ship also has a problem of some sort. Nobody is aware of what took place. In the systems room, a fire has broken out. Richard is brought inside by Christopher, where he is taken to the hospital. On the ship, every kind of mistake appears, from communication to navigation. Scylla and the medical staff attempt to revive Richard, but they are unsuccessful. The chief medical officer, Scylla, declares him dead. The crew discusses what has happened in a meeting later on. The creaking noise is mentioned. One of the crew members claims that when it occurred, he saw something on the monitor that appeared to be an alien force hurling itself at Richard. Phoebe begins to sob. They are comforted by Christopher, who assures them that everything will be fine if they remain strong. The crew checks the surveillance archive as the systems restart, but the fire in the system room has destroyed all of the video. They must select a new chief executive. Zach believes he ought to serve as chief. The others, however, assert that elections are required. They all cast ballots, and Christopher is chosen as the new commander. Zach congratulates him despite his jealousy. The transmitter needs to be fixed as a matter of urgency. He organizes the entire crew to work on the other fire-related repairs that need to be made to the ship. The last item on the repair list is the surveillance system, which will allow them to see what happened to Richard. The drives should be fine, they hope. When Christopher knocks on the door, Scylla enters his office and peruses his photos and videos. Even though she doesn't want to, she tells him that she must destroy his personal archive. They discuss the value of parents as she shows him pictures of Richard. When he inquires as to why Richard told her about his life, assuming that they were more than just friends, she replies that he was simply feeling lonely. They watch his video journal, in which he discusses how much he cares for them and how much he believes in the mission. The crew is upset that they aren't at their posts when Christopher goes looking for them and finds them in the cantina. In order to prevent food loss, Zach informs him that the refrigerators are being repaired. In order to celebrate their new chief officer, he asks him if they can have a feast because there is a lot of food that might go bad. Kai warns the others not to drink the blue after they have finished eating, and they all throw it out. Scylla and Christopher are laughing and having fun while watching Richard's videos. She is attracting Christopher more and more. Julie is touched by Zach as a result of his attraction to her. They are being observed by the others. Later, the crew is seen having fun while playing, fighting, and running around the ship. They all browse Richard's private collection. When Scylla discovers them in his quarters, he orders them to leave, but they refuse. The last to depart, Zach informs Scylla that Richard is no longer there to keep an eye on her. She returns to the operating room and takes a scalpel. When Christopher learns Scylla is in the med bay, he heads there before Zach can, because he fears something bad Zach might do to Scylla. Christopher pretends that they are making love when Zach arrives, and then he leaves. Unaware of his motives, Scylla threatens him with the scalpel. She counters his offer to assist her by urging him to assist the rest of the crew instead because things are spiraling out of control. When they hear the strange crackling sound again, Christopher departs and finds Zach on the way, warning him to avoid Scylla. Others on the ship can hear it, so he circles the ship to follow it. When Kai sees Julie approaching another crew member, he becomes enraged and knocks him off her. They clash. The crew resists Christopher's attempts to discipline them later in the cantina. The crewman Kai assaulted suddenly starts hitting him with a tool. Christopher strikes him as well to stop him. Everyone is instructed to attend to Kai and the other patient before gathering in the common room, he says. He declares to everyone in the meeting that the fighting must stop and that reparations must go on. The others believe they shouldn't be doing the work because they won't complete the mission, and Zach challenges them to do it. Christopher asserts that they must provide for their grandchildren. Because the alien resides there, one of the crew members claims he doesn't want to work in the system's room. When Richard passed away, he believes Christopher brought it inside. Zach dismisses Phoebe's idea and tells Christopher to stop talking when she suggests they fix the surveillance system and investigate what happened. He no longer cares about following the rules and tries to persuade the others to support him by claiming Christopher isn't the best leader. Zach feels that he should be in charge and tries to persuade the others to join his team so that if an alien does appear, they will be able to defeat it. While many of the crew members follow him, some of them stick by Christopher. Fearing the alien might be present, that group heads to the surveillance room to fix the system. Christopher enters first to make sure. As they move through the corridors, Zach and the others arrive in the system's room. Without realizing Christopher had also been there, he and Kai enter the room. To find the alien, they delve further into the space. The people outside notice something going on inside, and Zach and Kai flee the room in terror as they do so. They later reveal that the alien attacked them to the rest of the group. Christopher delivers the surveillance drive to Scylla in the medical bay in the meantime. He looks over the video with her and a few other people. They discover the video from the system's room and come to the conclusion that Richard was electrocuted to death by Zach and Kay, who then made up the story about the alien. The group decides to remain silent for the time being while they decide what to do. While discussing Zach, Christopher and Scylla keep the drive hidden in her room. He believes that without the drug, they are actually like this, but she claims that they are not the same as each other. He expresses concern that the others might not care about the truth, and that perhaps he himself doesn't care. He is instructed to remain with Scylla. They embrace and then share a bed. There is a knock on Scylla's door in the morning. Zach is announcing that in some way or another, he will enter. Zach and Kai greet her and Christopher at the door and invite them to another party in the cantina. While the others are already eating, Christopher's group shows up. They are invited by Zach to go get some food. He stands up as soon as they take a seat and declares himself the new chief officer. Christopher suddenly gets up walks over to a monitor and starts to play the video of the incident. He admits to lying to them and tells the others that Zach killed Richard and that the alien is not present. He advises Zach to stay in his room while they consult the program and make a decision. Zach confesses, saying he did it to protect them because the alien was in Richard and Christopher brought it inside, and everyone becomes upset. He persuades the others that the alien is within the spacecraft, concealed inside one of them. They all concur when Zach advises that they need to locate and kill it. They start fighting after he sets them up against one another. They start pursuing the crewman who works in the medical bay because they believe he is the culprit. Christopher does the same. The crewman is kicked to death by the other crew members after Kai strikes him first. Zach's group enters the medical bay to arm themselves, while Christopher leads his group to a secure location on the ship. As Christopher's group tries to decide what to do, some of them want to give up and say that there is nothing they can do right now. They believe that since Zach's group has weapons and theirs does not, they should join him and attempt to kidnap him later. Sela discovers that Christopher is aware of the weapons kept in the ship's hidden compartment. By himself, Christopher goes in search of it. He crawls inside a compartment after opening it in search of it. When he does locate it, he is unable to open it, and an alarm begins to sound, which Julie and another crew member hear. They alert Zach to his presence inside the compartments as well. When Christopher returns from getting some tools to open the compartment, the other group has already begun disassembling the compartments. The weapons are discovered when the covered compartment is opened. Zach claims they are for them, contrary to Kay's belief that they are for the third generation. Christopher's group has two people who want to join Zach and the others. Where are the others hiding? Zach wonders. To get closer to Zach, Sela, Phoebe, and Christopher come up with a plan. Phoebe objects to his suggestion that he should murder the man. Sela notices that they are moving and pursuing them as she watches them on the monitor. After cutting their power, they enter the room. As the others storm the room and seize them, Sela instructs her group not to fight back. As they drag Christopher away, Sela intervenes and requests a private conversation with Zach. As she approaches him, she declares that she wants to be with him and be a part of his group. When Phoebe shows up and inquires as to whether they have all gone insane, he rejects her and laughs at her. She asserts that they have the choice to change their behavior, but everyone told her to stop talking. Kai abruptly kills her, much to everyone's shock, including Zach. But he reverses course and pursues Christopher. He and Sela manage to flee, but the others search the entire ship for them. They conceal themselves in a vent, but the others quickly figure it out. Julie warns Zach to be careful because he's destroying their food supply as he fires inside. He sends one of his men after them to try and capture them, but they manage to get away once more. They are suddenly fired upon, prompting them to begin looking for weapons. As Kai enters the med bay, Christopher uses a fire extinguisher to knock him out and kill him inadvertently. They are quickly discovered by Zach, who chases after them while firing. Sela is instructed to put on a spacesuit by Christopher as they enter an airlock. He closes the airlock's window. Zach shoots without thinking when he gets there. The hatch to the outside has been opened, and he is suddenly drawn inside. As he closes the hatch, he grabs Sela and struggles with her before stabbing her with a knife. As they struggle, Christopher pushes the man outside the hatch, but gets sucked out into space himself. Sela ejects Zach before he can close the hatch. In her search for Christopher, while she waits for him to return, she unexpectedly witnesses him grabbing hold of the ship. When the two of them return inside, they inform the others that Zach has left. They put their weapons down. Later, the entire crew is enjoying lunch in the cantina. Sela questions Christopher on how to prevent a similar incident from occurring in the future. They re-listen to some of Richard's recordings in which he claims that regardless of the mission's negative outcomes, Those who survive serve as evidence that people are valuable enough to be saved. The crew elects Scylla as their new chief following another vote. She writes in her diary that they will vote in favor of everything going forward, and that they won't switch back to the blue. As time passes, the crew keeps mending the ship and cooperating peacefully. Scylla is visible to be expecting, and the child is Christopher's. A child is born. It can be seen joining other kids and running on the ship a few years later. As the first generation ages, those kids develop on the ship. 86 years after the mission's inception, the Humanitas is still visible in space, activating its drive to touch down on a planet. Both the older and younger generations gaze toward their new residence on the alien planet.